Hi, everyone. My name is Zach Mayo. I'll be moderating this Relish Careers webinar today. I want to thank you for tuning in. We had the opportunity over the last few days to sit down and talk with recruiters and MBA alumni from top corporate recruiters like Under Armour, Corning, and Lowe's Home Improvement. We've cut together some of their answers and insights here for you to serve as an introduction to the MBA recruiting process, really designed for incoming students to understand what they're getting into and get a sense of the sort of opportunities that are available to MBAs. So please enjoy the webinar. Please log into relishcareers.com and make sure to follow and engage with the companies in the webinar, as well as a number of our other featured companies. And as always, feel free to reach out to our team at relishcareers.com anytime with questions. Enjoy the webinar. I want to start out by asking you just to introduce yourself.
My name is Kenny Anabo. I went to Johnson, graduated in 2017, and now I work at Corning Incorporated in Corning, New York. Technically, my official role is business development analyst, but really I help solve kind of high-level strategic questions between two different groups within our advanced optics department.
Sure. My name is Mark Clark. I manage the college recruiting, university relations, and military recruiting for Lowe's companies out of Mooresville, North Carolina. We are the Lowe's Home Improvement. We're based about 30 miles north of Charlotte in a beautiful part of the Southeast. I've been with Lowe's for a total of almost 9 years in two different assignments. Prior to coming to Lowe's, I had also been in college recruiting, university relations in both Chicago and the Washington, D.C. area. I received my undergraduate degree from Ball State University in beautiful Muncie, Indiana, and also did some graduate business work at Olivet Nazarene University in Kankakee.
So my name is Brian Kaminsky. I have been at Under Armour for almost 5 years. I'm a director of talent acquisition here, and my responsibilities encompass our college programs as well as what we call early career emerging talent. So basically through right out of undergrad all the way up through getting an MBA.
So I'll start. So I'm Shelby Hall, and I'm originally from New Jersey. And for undergrad, I went to Howard University in DC, worked 5 years at JP Morgan Chase, and did my MBA at Duke University, so Fuqua School of Business. And I did my internship at Under Armour, focusing in on women's underwear and sports bras and really how to grow that segment. And then came back full time, and now I'm in our corporate strategy division and have been here for about 3.5 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Dolan. I'm originally from New York, just outside the city. I went to Dartmouth for my undergrad, and then actually went back to Dartmouth for my MBA, so I went to Tuck. I interned here as well. I was in the corporate strategy group when I interned, and I worked on a project that was primarily focused on looking at distribution and what accounts we're in and where there's some distribution opportunities.
Hi everyone, I'm Remy. I'm from Colorado. Went to Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut for undergrad, and then did investment banking in New York for a couple years. I also went to Tuck and was also an MBA intern here. But I was on the finance team, so my project was about kind of an allocation resource model that our footwear team actually continues to use to date. And then I actually switched from the finance team when I came back full time into our brand new pricing team, so I've been working there for the last 2 years.
You were once in the situation of many people in our audience coming into graduate business school, thinking about recruiting. I'm interested if you could share what interested you about the particular industry.
One of the things that interested me about the athletic apparel and footwear industry was just that it's a time where there's a lot of change in the marketplace. So with players like Amazon and the online space growing like crazy, it's really disrupting the traditional model of big box wholesalers and us selling directly to them and then them selling to consumers. And it's shifting more towards an omni-channel marketplace where we're selling online. We have some of our own stores. We are still selling to our traditional big box customers, but it's evolving every day, and it's just a really interesting space to be over the past couple of years, and I think will continue to be interesting. One of the things that excited me about Under Armour specifically was, we've been a growth company for a really long time. We experienced something like 20% growth for 20 consecutive quarters or something along those lines. So we've grown like crazy, and we do have the size and scale to compete with the biggest players in the industry. On the other hand, we still are very much an entrepreneurial company at our core, and we still have an entrepreneurial DNA, and we have sort of just get it done attitude. And I think that creates a lot of really interesting opportunities for MBAs, particularly to come in and make a big impact and work on projects that actually really matter, because we have grown like crazy and we do have a lot of challenges that we're facing. So the projects that we work on, there really is a need for.
I think for me, in terms of being in the shoes of an MBA student, I came to Under Armour because it had always been a brand that really interested me, and I was really interested in Kevin Plank and his leadership for a really long time. As Under Armour continues to grow, it continues to be this really incredible brand and unique culture, and it took literally 20 seconds of being on campus to realize how exciting of a place it is to be. And I would have just echoed Tim's point that at this point in your career, you really have an opportunity here to create and impact where we are headed as a company.
I think for me, I had a slightly different lens, and I'm really excited about like fashion and apparel, and that was my first kind of recruiting lens. And then once I was able to really understand, like, I can mix fashion and activewear, that space to me was super exciting and just meshed both of my passions of sports and fashion all in the same space. And then for me, Under Armour, I really got to know the people that worked at Under Armour in my recruiting and coffee chats and talking to people. And for me, it really resonated with me that it was a very similar culture to Fuqua, which is, it sounds cliche, but it's like a really down to earth culture, but people are really smart and work really hard, but are very personable and down to earth and relatable. And it's just a space for me where I feel like I can thrive the best in.
I like working for companies that make physical materials. I like being around a plant floor. That type of thing is very appealing. So as I was considering what firms I wanted to work for at a business school, I did kind of have manufacturing companies towards the top of mind. What struck me as really interesting about Corning specifically is that they're very innovation-based, and they're very interested in building the best possible products they possibly can. A little background on Corning for people who may not be familiar, like I was unfamiliar when I first started recruiting. Corning builds specialty glass products. So basically anything that's made out of glass that isn't a window or a bottle or a drinking glass, Corning is probably one of the leaders in that. So for example, the glass that you touch when you use a touchscreen phone or like an iPad, Corning has a product called Gorilla Glass that they do a lot of things with. We also build a lot of the intermediate glass layers in LCD televisions, like the one behind me. We build a lot of like miscellaneous kind of products. So for example, we've built every window that's gone on a space shuttle. So those are kind of like the weird niche applications that I looked at and thought like, I wonder what it takes to be the market leader in something like that. So a lot of Corning, and what appealed to me about Corning was the innovation side of their products.
Can you just talk a little bit about what that timeline was like when you came into school versus when you started recruiting, and when you eventually landed the internship?
The moment that I got onto campus, which was early August of first year, people are already, when I say people, I mean my classmates, I mean professors, I mean the administration. They all want you to start thinking long and hard about what you want to start recruiting with, because recruiting starts really early for first-year MBAs. So it was at that point that in early August, I was already trying to narrow down and say, okay, let's name 3 industries or 3 types of aspects that I'm looking for. And by the time September started rolling around and you get companies coming on campus for informationals, then I had to narrow it down. Okay, let's talk about 20 actual companies that I think are the most interesting. So by the time that I was having to really start to make good, deep connections with second years that had internships at different companies, then starting resume drops in November and December, I really was starting to know in my mind which firms were the most interesting for me to go after. It just so happened to me that I really narrowed down some of my first choices really early. So I took a very focused approach. I think I only dropped resumes for probably 7 or so companies. Then I went through several interviews through the January, February timeframe, and eventually ended up with an offer somewhere in that kind of area. So then by February, March, I was having to make decisions of where I wanted to go, which set me up well for the springtime and preparing myself for my actual internship at Corning.
You can find a lot of information about our programs on our careers page at careers.underarmour.com. And then you can also check out our blogs and social channels just to see a little bit more about some of the other parts of the company that you might not hear about on a day-to-day basis, like our culture clubs and other things that we're doing in the community for give back and other parts that make Under Armour a unique place to be. From a timeline perspective, typically we accept applications throughout the fall on our website at careers.underarmour.com. You can also apply via a number of different career sites that'll link out to our page. And once you apply, then we'll start gradually reviewing resumes, reaching out to students. Typically, we do most of our interviews and hiring in early January and February for graduate students with the hope to get those offers out as soon as we can towards the beginning of the year for that summer.
We will normally start our recruiting cycle in the fall, very early in the fall. Oftentimes, that last week in August, first week in September. We try to post our full-time as well as our internships between the beginning of September and mid-September, and probably do 2/3 of our recruiting for those roles in that fall timeframe, September through those December holidays. If there's additional roles that become available, they can be filled in the January, February timeframe. But even for positions that we're not starting interns until May or full-time hires until the following June or July, we will start recruiting for those early in the fall. So I typically encourage students to get plugged into that recruiting cycle as early as possible.
When you came in as an MBA student and went through sort of the first year recruiting process, what that was like, and if you interned with a different company, maybe if you talk about your second year recruiting process as well.
I wanted to really keep my horizons open because I was coming in, again, off of that manufacturing career, but knowing that I wanted to use business school as a way to broaden my capabilities and broaden the questions that I was going to be responsible for asking. So in that sense, I looked at a lot of general management, but also a lot of consulting firms to see if there were opportunities there that might match up with what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be as, I grew up, so to speak. So as I was going and learning about lots of different companies, I was trying to talk with people who had experience in those fields who were in my class, talking with recent graduates, talking with the companies themselves, ask them, what does this life look like? What does the career progression look like? People who do well look like this. People who don't do well look like that. And that was a really good experience for me because it gave me a lot of information, but it also forced me to really be honest with myself about what things truly did I want to do with this career, with these 2 years of my life. And that, I don't want to get too existential or philosophical, but I feel like that was a very important part of my recruiting process, was saying you have all these opportunities. Going to a top tier business school gives you just endless amounts of opportunities, and you have to, or I had to, really be honest about what things were the most interesting to me. And it was through that process that I was starting to narrow down the types of companies that I liked, the geographies that I liked, the type of working cultures that I liked, and eventually ended up focusing on Corning even for my internship. So I actually did intern here after the first year as well. Did a project evaluating the strategy of a particular product line that we were developing, and ended up getting a full-time offer that I accepted after evaluating other recruiting opportunities as well.
So I did my project it was in women's underwear. It was really with the women's kind of apparel team, supporting them. And as I came back full time, I was in product strategy and now into corporate strategy. And so with corporate strategy, I think what's different is that you get to work on projects that sit in all lines of businesses, and you really continue to round out your thinking in terms of if it's a sales more focused or marketing focused. And so while my project was solely on apparel and how do you grow that from a product standpoint, so not only do I still do stuff with that segment, I also do stuff with a lot of other segments that have just enables you to be able to move around. Like say you didn't want to stay in one position, you're so well-rounded that you can go into the business and do a lot of different things.
I came back on our finance team and was helping them build out reporting for all of our sport categories. And I think a really good example of Under Armour is that when you see an opportunity, people jump for it and try to build the capability and strengthen the company. And at that time in the company, we didn't have a team dedicated to pricing. And so I was able to really shift the gears from an FP&A finance role into joining the pricing team and helping build it up as new capability for the company. And I think those kind of opportunities exist constantly here as we are very much an entrepreneurial company.
If you could just explain a little bit about what a day in the life is like for a grad student, alum, or an intern, and then a full-time hire. Maybe just talk a little bit about your experience and what you've worked on.
There's a lot of emphasis that Corning has on their newer hires and even on their interns to not only do the work and learn about how to better deliver a product, but also learn more about the company, what the company is doing, and what other opportunities exist. Because Corning likes to move its employees around. Aside from the leadership development program, which is a pretty typical rotational type of a structure, even people who didn't come in as graduates of a business school or grad full-time hires, Corning likes to rotate its employees. So it's very important for people to learn about what else is going on in the company. That all falls into place because my day in the life, often I'll show up in the morning, usually around 8 a.m., sometimes earlier if I have a call with our team in China, because we have a lot of operations in China. So I'm either talking with the people who are local there or people who are traveling to China and I still need to communicate with. And then in the morning, I do some of that learning. I read some of our market reports. We have an internal website that talks about a lot of the breaking news from not only a financial and a manufacturing and operational standpoint, but also different awards that people have won or key patents that people have delivered recently. So I spend half an hour or so looking through our internal site with some of the new updates, learning about where my next opportunity might be. And then as I go through the day, basically the bulk of my day is split really between communicating with people. So that means giving people updates on my projects, talking with people, offering my input of things that I've developed, but also listening to insights from people who have been doing things that I'm working on, people who have thoughts about the direction that my projects should take. So the communication is a big part, but then also there's the actual doing the work, doing research if I'm trying to develop a competitive analysis case, reading market reports if I'm trying to estimate where a market might be going or when a certain type of technology is going to become popularized, and actually what one would say doing my job basically. But again, I point out the development part because learning about the people at Corning, learning about the cultures, and communicating with people who may not even be in my group is a pretty big part of this job that Corning expects of all of its employees, but especially if you're going through a leadership development type of role.
We actually, for the internship program, we do about a 2.5 to 3 day orientation where we'll bring in a lot of our senior leadership to help share their experiences, talk a little bit about the Lowe's culture. We really want that internship to be a simulated environment, similar to an experience if you're working here full time. We'll give the interns the opportunity to do a community service activity like a habitat build or connect with one of the other organizations that we work with in the business or in the community. We also do a lot of networking opportunities with the interns, with some of our executives, and we'll also do some fun outside activities with the interns. Whether that's going to a Charlotte Knights baseball game, minor league baseball game, doing an escape room, or doing rock climbing, things like that, just to bring them closer together as a team, have some fun, and get some inside look at the Lowe's culture. Yeah, I think a lot of the MBAs are going to be coming into I'll say kind of almost not quite a mid-career role, but a role where they're going to be part of a project team. that they're not going to be working independently. I think one word that probably best describes our culture here at the corporate office is collaborative. So I think coming in, even if you're coming in as an MBA into a new finance role, you'll probably be working with some people over in merchandising, working with some people in supply chain, working as part of a cross-functional team to allow you to be effective. You're not going to be just kind of compartmentalized in one area and just focus on that area. And I think that is probably reflective of our Lowe's culture. Even though we have the various areas of the business, we all need to work together because everything that we're doing here, whether it's an intern or a full-time MBA hire, is really allowing for a better experience for all of our store employees and our distribution center employees, as well as that ultimate experience that any and all of our customers will have in our stores.
So for my internship working with women's apparel, I think what's great about the internship is that it's very indicative of what it's like to be here full time. So when you get your project for the summertime, it tends to be really large in scope, and then as you work through the summer, it tends to narrow its focus. And my experience was that people were so willing to help to kind of give you input in your project, because your project is really going to be a cross-functional initiative. So when you need to talk to sales, marketing, sports marketing, and to really understand how to drive your project forward, because you're not only as an intern trying to get to understand the business, but you're also trying to apply a lot of the business mindset skills that you've learned within your first year as an MBA. So I think for me, it was really just exciting to kind of meet all the teammates, which are helpful to your project along the way. But it's this gray area that gives you a chance to kind of own it and drive it yourself. And that's super important, a skill set to own, and because that's what we do day to day within our corporate strategy team. But you're also given that guidance to kind of make sure you're going down the right path to really be successful and really be supported in the best way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're really good in terms of our MBA internship of providing everyone with the opportunity to own a project and drive it across the finish line and define what it looks like and continue to be your own filter in what the project looks like. So there's complete ownership for your work, and you really drive the thinking and where you want to take it, and you have these resources available. But in terms of opportunities out there, I don't know how many other internships really give you that much of a full ownership experience that works on an important project that a lot of them then are integrated into our business itself.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add too is one of the things that Under Armour purposefully does with their internships is they try to make them projects where you have to work with people all throughout the company. So on any given day, I'm sure any intern would have a bunch of meetings where they're meeting people from different business units. And some things that are nice about that is it just gives you a chance to understand all the different things that go on at Under Armour. Prior to working here, I didn't have a good appreciation for how confusing and intricate running what seems to be just an athletic apparel and footwear company can be, but there really are tons of interesting parts of the business. There's lots of really great people that work here. They really like meeting interns. And so it's a great opportunity to get to know all the different things that Under Armour does and sort of get an understanding of what really drives the business and how all of these different teams have to work together to get things done.
And so when you guys are looking when you guys are evaluating candidates, are there particular qualities that you feel like make them a good fit? And
I think, since, a lot of our focus is on the customer, I think, somebody having experience in a customer-facing role is certainly helpful. That could be in a sales role. That could be in some type of a customer experience role. That could be in marketing. It could be any type of frontline leadership experience. I think that, that is definitely helpful. Someone who has had the opportunity to manage a cross-functional team, a diverse cross-functional team is definitely going to have a leg up. You may be one of the newer members of the team, but you're going to have a specific role, and at certain times you're going to be asked to step up, to lead a particular part of a project, or to lead an initiative. So I think somebody who can is good at that situational leadership. In some situations they may need to follow, in other situations they may need to step up and lead. I think that's important. Being able to take that initiative, being able to be a leader, being able to interact efficiently with others, whether it's another colleague on a team or whether it's with senior leadership. I think somebody with those skills would fit very well in with the Lowe's culture, and do well as someone coming right out of business school and fitting well into our culture.
When you look at a company that maybe has a little bit more ambiguity, that in my mind creates a lot more opportunity for you to leverage your skills and talents, but also to really grow over the course of that internship experience. So being open to maybe somewhat nebulous or somewhat ambiguous opportunities at a brand or a company and an organization that you're excited about, I think that's one piece. The second piece is to make sure that you're leveraging your networks and doing your research to learn about the brand and the opportunities that you're pursuing. It's one thing to be interested in working in sports or fashion, and it's another thing to be interested in working in fashion at Under Armour, or sports at Under Armour, or product at Under Armour. And just understanding the difference and the nuance there, I think, is super important. And then I think the last thing is really understanding what opportunity are you going to have to make an impact during your summer. I think the smaller the brand or the smaller the companies that you look at, the bigger the opportunity is to leave a lasting impact on the organization.
Like anything any sort of advice in general that you have for incoming students, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be about the recruiting process.
I would just say, from day one when you get to school, really, start thinking with the end in mind. Be very intentional about what you're studying, the organizations you get involved in. You've got so many things taking, trying to take control of your time, and I think there's a lot of distractions out there. But I would just encourage the students to be intentional, about how they spend their time, but also be willing to explore some new opportunities and areas that maybe you didn't originally think you would have an interest in. The 2 years or 18 months, in business school is going to go by fast, but everything you're doing from day one will have an eventual impact on either that internship that you take or that full-time role that you end up in. So use your time wisely, explore those areas that you're passionate about, and you just continue to explore.
It's true. I wish I would have taken the advice of some of my mentors and some of the people who had spent more time at Corning more seriously when it came to their thoughts on what they're looking for in a young employee at the company. Because so much of education, especially graduate education, is learning to get the right answer and learning to do the right analysis. And when I started at Corning, people said, hey, that's great. We like the good analysis. We like smart people, but we also want people who are willing to learn, people who are willing to manage teams, people who are willing to listen, people who are willing to just be a part of the group and be willing to accept and give feedback as an earnest team member. It doesn't necessarily have to do with doing the right calculations. I consider myself to be a pretty good people person, but even then, there's a part in the back of your mind that thinks, okay, yeah, sure, they say just be a good person, but ultimately, if that cell in your Excel box is wrong, or if you offer the wrong type of analysis, or you make the wrong type of person upset, it can all come crashing down. So there's always that bit of fear that I had in the back of my mind that I think hindered my ability to just be trustful and be open with the teams that I was working with. I think that's something that I wish I would have taken that advice more seriously, more at face value than I did.
One of the things I would think about is as you're applying to different jobs and looking at different companies, having been on the other side of that process, it's really hard to differentiate between candidates when you're getting hundreds of resumes that everyone has a really impressive background. So the ones that really stand out are the people that have shown a clear interest in the company and done a lot of research, and they understand the industry and they understand the challenges facing the company. So to the extent that you can communicate specific interest in Under Armour and in the industry while you're applying, and this probably goes for any company you're looking at, that's one way to really have yourselves kind of stand out among a really thick pile of impressive resumes.
I would advise to be patient. I know there is a lot of momentum and people around you during the recruiting process, and it can be easy to get in the swirl of things, but a lot of really cool opportunities take time and aren't necessarily on their early end. And so be sure that you're there waiting for the opportunities that really work for you. I know when I was going through it, everybody was trying to be a consultant or a banker, and I waited the extra time to apply to the company Under Armour that I really wanted to be at, and I'm incredibly grateful for it, but I know it's hard in the moment to just sit and wait.
I think for me, when I just looking back and thinking about my student loans that I'm still paying, I just think about, like, you spend so much money investing in time and your education, that make the most of it while you're there and get so much experience with traveling, with all the programs. I think it just adds to your experience as you start to get on teams and what you can really bring to the table. And then also just like stick with your passion. Like Remy said, I can't like stress it enough, where like I wanted to do something in retail, and like it is so easy to get off track, just to like be passionate, because this investment is such a big deal in life and you can't go back and change it. So that like do like exactly what you want to do at the end of the day and just stay true to yourself.
And that will do it for the MBA Recruitment Process webinar for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you learned a lot. Thank you again to our participants from Corning, Lowe's, and Under Armour. Please log into the Relish Careers platform and follow their pages on the employer search, and use our platform to engage with them throughout the recruiting process. As always, thank you for viewing the webinar series. Watch your email inbox for announcements of upcoming webinars, and good luck out there.